Right, friends, let's come to the next chapter on how to get exemption in SCMPE by PK sir. So now we're gonna see another important chapter, that is transfer pricing. Many students have been continuously messaging me with respect to this particular chapter. So when is going to be transfer pricing and all that. After decision making, I've received most number of requests for this chapter itself. Anyway, so we're gonna spend some good amount of time, so we're going to analyze and study clearly in detail how to study this particular chapter to gain expertise and eventually get exemption in SCMPE. Okay, as you can see, out of 4 attempts, in 3 attempts, you'll get a question from this chapter. So it's 75% probability is there. And of course, when it comes for 10 marks on an average. Okay, right. Let us see important topics over here, right? Priority number one will be transfer pricing methods and capacity constraint problems. This is priority number one. Capacity constraint in the sense which is based on limiting factor. Okay. So you need to learn different transfer pricing methods. That is, you have market priced method, you have cost based, negotiation based, right? So all these things you got to learn. In cost based, you have total cost, you have variable cost or marginal cost, you have cost plus profit. You got it. All these different methods you got to learn. Very important. Priority number two, behavioral consequences. I gave it a second priority, which means obviously it's very important in the chapter. What do you mean by behavioral consequences? If I fix a particular transfer price, how will the supply and division manager will react? Will he accept? Will he reject? What about receiving division manager? Will he accept? Will he reject? So that thought process must be done. Only then you can fix the correct transfer price, which is agreeable by both these divisional managers at the same time, which is in the interest of the company. Only then you can call it as goal congruence have been achieved. You understand the point? If a particular transfer price is agreeable by only the divisional managers, but it is not in the interest of the company or it is not aligned with the overall objectives of the company, then we can call it as a goal conflict. So goal conflict is always bad. You understand the point? So there will be so many questions where goal conflict scenario will happen and you need to fix transfer price in such a way that goal congruence will eventually happen, which means I should know clearly what are the behavioral consequences, how these people will react, whether he'll agree or he'll disagree. If he disagrees, what I have to do, then what are the changes I need to make to my transfer price. This is very important. This is the crux of this chapter. Next, okay, if at all there happens a fight, just now we have discussed, if they don't agree, what's going to happen? That is nothing but we call it as transfer pricing conflict. That is priority number 3. How to resolve the transfer pricing conflict? Of course, we have two methods. One is dual rate pricing, the other one is two-part pricing. That you have to clearly read and understand. And the last priority is international transfer pricing. Okay, it's not that important, but still you can get a question in the exam, so we just need to study, and it is not that difficult also, quite a bit simple only, right? Let's look at the additional notes. What are all things that you have to keep in mind? The first thing is you need to know history of transfer pricing. Very important. I'll explain you shortly in this particular video. You can ask me, what do you mean by history of transfer pricing and why that is relevant? Yes, it is relevant. Once I start explaining, you will understand. Next, logic behind transfer pricing concept. No need of any formula. First of all, this you keep it in mind. I've seen so many students, they are by hatting. Maximum TP is equal to NMR or external buying price, whichever is less. Minimum TP is equal to variable cost or marginal cost or variable cost plus opportunity cost. Don't buy heart. If you buy heart means you cannot solve new models. Simple logic. And of course, you cannot enjoy the subject also. So there are two negative points. Then what is the incentive for you to buy heart? You can't enjoy the subject, you can't remember, and you can't solve new sums. Don't buy heart. So try to understand the logic behind that. I'll try to explain you one example in this session itself. Next, common sense and imagination, very important to understand TP. Of course, imagination is very important to understand the whole concepts of all the chapters when it comes to SCMPE. The costing subject is like that. The more powerful you have imagination, the more expertise you'll get in costing. That's why costing is a pretty rare subject where only few people will have expertise. The reason is everybody doesn't have the gift of imagination. But if you don't have, it is not something that is automatically given, but you have to get it through training, which means you had to keep on imagining the answer. You got to imagine what will happen inside the factory. Watch, you know, just try to imagine that a car manufacturing is happening, how that entire manufacturing lineup will be, the production line will be, the track. You got to just keep on imagining. The more you imagine, the easier and interesting the subject will become. And of course, this is also very important, transfer pricing with learning curve, the linkage. Transfer pricing with linear programming problems. That's also important. Transfer pricing with decision making. Transfer pricing with Potter's five forces. There is a case study also on that. So you got to connect all the dots. That is very important. Just reading transfer pricing and sticking on to transfer pricing doesn't work. Especially new syllabus, that is the biggest problem. We have to link in a single chapter multiple concepts. Just how I have linked in decision making chapter, I linked limiting factor with what, make or buy with indifference point. So single chapter multiple concepts I have linked. Similarly, the whole chapter you got to link with another topic, and you have to link multiple chapters. So this linkage is what that is important. Now how this linkage is possible, sir? Very simple. It's like connecting the dots approach. This is what I tell my students: connecting the dots. Every dot is like a piece of knowledge that you have learned. Suppose a limiting factor concept, make or buy concept, indifference point concept, or otherwise this dot is transfer pricing, this dot is standard costing, this dot is decision making. So what you guys basically do is you will put walls between these dots of knowledge, and therefore one dot will never be allowed to mix with the other dot, thereby you will not be able to interconnect. So try to crash these walls and connect the dots, then you'll get ocean of knowledge without any walls in between, and that is what you need to become expert in any subject whatsoever. This is a universal rule. Are you able to understand? In fact, when I was preparing for civils, this is a technique that I've applied, and that was the reason why I got selected for UPS and went to interview also. You got the point? Anyway, chalo. So this is the logic. Got it? Right. Anyway, so I'll just repeat it again, then we'll go and see the examples. Okay. So 3 attempts out of 4 attempts, you'll get a question from transfer pricing. On an average, it will be for 10 marks. Then the priority number 1, transfer pricing methods and capacity constraint problems. Priority number 2, behavioral consequences, goal conflict and goal congruence. Priority number 3, resolving TP conflict, dual rate transfer pricing systems and 2-part transfer pricing systems, important. Last priority, least priority, will be for international transfer pricing, but still you may get a question. Anyway, apart from that, these are all the other points that you have to keep in mind. Understand the history of transfer pricing, very important. I'll give you an example shortly. Then logic behind the transfer pricing concept. Don't try to remember any formula, as I've given you examples over here. Do not by heart them. Understand why it is like that. Common sense and imagination, very important to understand TP. And of course, connecting the dots. TP with learning curve, TP with linear programming problems, TP with decision making, TP with Potter's five forces. Got it? Connect all the dots, and that is very important. If at all you got to get expertise in this particular chapter. Got it, guys? Yeah. Anyway, chalo, let's go and see. Now, this is what I told you, that you need to have a little bit of history of transfer pricing. See, always when you try to start with a concept, you got to understand why that concept would have come into picture. That's really important. Only then you will understand, okay, this is the reason why transfer pricing chapter exists. Once you understand this is the reason why there is a chapter called transfer pricing, and that's the reason I have to study, then automatically all the concepts will be digested meticulously in a very smooth manner. You need not put a lot of efforts. The reason you have to put a lot of efforts is because you don't understand something in detail in crystal clear clarity. That's where the problem comes. Anyway, right now, see, I don't have time because the purpose of this video is not to explain you the concepts. I've been repeating it so many times, but anyway. So once upon a time, there was centralized way of doing business, which means everything is decided by head office. I'll maintain some speed. Please try to follow, because this is not a session to explain the concept. So once upon a time, there was centralized way of doing business. Everything was decided by the head office. Any branches, departments, division, etc. are just told to follow the orders from head office. So because of this, basically what happens, there was no motivation for managers and they were inefficient. In fact, most of them. So this was hurting the profits of the company, obviously, because all of them doesn't work to their fullest potential. So what is the solution for this? Decentralization. You remember when I was teaching JAT, I think so, if I'm not wrong, I told you that the nature of life is you'll have a problem and then you'll find a solution for that problem, and this solution will give rise to another problem, and then again you need to find a solution for that problem, and this solution will give rise to another problem. The nature goes on like this. It's a nature rule, just like Pareto analysis where 80 is to 20 rule. It's a nature rule, right? It's very powerful. Similarly, this is a nature rule. It just keeps on going. So initially I had this problem because of centralized way of doing business. Most of the people were inefficient and that was hurting the profits of my company. So what did I do? I went for decentralization. So what did I say? I said head office will not involve in day-to-day activities of the branch. So I gave you autonomy. Divisional autonomy means that independence is given, that power is given. So divisional managers are given independence to take their own decisions. So what head office will do? It will just measure their performance based on some parameters. which means profit or return on investment or comparing standard cost with actual cost, something like that. Are you able to understand? And if the performance is good, incentives will be given. So this word called incentives, this will act as a motivation for the divisional managers to perform efficiently. Now they know that okay, fine. If I perform well, I'll be getting incentives. So that is a motivation factor, that is a drive factor, and they started working to their fullest potential. This actually led to the concept of transfer pricing. Why? How will you measure their performance? If you want to measure their performance, it will be mostly based on profit, correct? How will you get profit? Now, supply and division is something, let's presume that supply and division don't sell to outside, which means it will sell internally only. In that case, because it is within the company, it cannot sell at a selling price, right? It will just transfer at a cost. In that case, you cannot calculate profit, correct? Which means you cannot measure the performance. So to make that measurement of performance possible, so I've introduced something called transfer pricing, which is a pseudo selling price, where supply division will artificially sell its output to the receiving division at a price, at a selling price called transfer price. Thereby supply division will have some profit based on which its performance will be measured, and accordingly bonus will be given. So this is a whole funda initially. Are you able to understand? Remaining basics anyway, I think you people know. The price at which intermediate goods of supply division is sold to receiving division is nothing but transfer price. So transfer price is revenue for the supply division and cost for the receiving division. Okay, that we know. So that is the history. Anyway, then you need to learn all the other basics and all examples of interdivisional transfers. Many people think that it is only goods and services, but even intangibles can be transferred. Interdivisional loans also can be transferred at TP. Okay, and then I just gave an example of international transfer pricing over here. What is the purpose of transfer pricing? What are the utilities of transfer pricing? Okay. Okay, anyway, the purpose is not to explain all these things. Now, did you understand the basic history right now? Now you know why they were forced to keep something called transfer price in between the divisional transfers. You got it? Now, okay, there was a problem that was a centralized way of doing business and people aren't performing really well. They were inefficient. So I got a solution for it, that is decentralization. Now, this solution gave rise to another problem. What is that? Every divisional manager started performing to their selfishness. As a result, the decisions that they were taking were actually increasing their division's profit, but it was at the cost of the company's profit as a whole, which means the individual decisions taken by the respective divisional managers are against the interest of the company as a whole, which means goal conflict scenario is getting created. Now we have to solve that by fixing a transfer price, which will create a goal congruence. Means I need to fix transfer price in such a way that these divisional managers will take those decisions that are in the interest of the company. Thereby, goal congruence is getting created. That is the purpose of. You got it? Anyway, we'll see that shortly. Another important thing that I wanted to tell you guys is, of course, you got to learn all these things. Okay? Yeah. And this is different transfer pricing methods. I told you that this is priority number 1. So understand the plus points, minus points of each transfer pricing method. That is very important. Okay, now I want to tell you one important thing. Now look at this problem number 2. Okay, all these are normal workings only. You will do all these calculations, but I want to focus on this area, the second part of the question. Okay. Now this is the answer in your study material. I have seen most of the students, what they've done is, this is the solution. I say my students, I specifically tell them that whenever you read the question, after learning the concepts, of course, do not look at the solution. Look at the final answer, not the way it has been solved. I always tell them. Why? Because if you see the answer over here, now you know that, okay, this is the way it has to be presented. First this table, and then this table, and then this table, and then this table. So your mind is getting, what do you call, inhibited. You are not letting your mind think to its fullest potential, which means you are destroying yourself. Why don't you allow your mind to do the job on its own? Have confidence and try. Only then you will learn. Most of the students, what they do, they just try to do the audit work. Okay, this is how it has been done, which means exactly I'll do the same way. Step 1 is this, step 2 is this, step 3 is this. So you're trying to inhibit yourself. That's the reason you can't solve new sums. And then, okay, this is the problem over here. Whereas you see how I have done, it was done in the class only. So my presentation was different. I presented it in a different way. As you can see here, the steps were different. So maybe in one step of your ICA answer, I made it 2 or 3 steps. It doesn't matter. It is easy for me. That's the way I have presented. Are you able to understand? That sort of freedom and freeness must be there in your mind if you want to gain expertise. but the answer is ultimately same, and the way it has been presented can be easily understood by the examiner. That's the ultimate goal for you. See, presentation. What is a good presentation, sir? Everybody asks. The good presentation is that presentation which can be understood by a third person. It's as simple as that. The guy who's correcting your paper tomorrow should be able to understand what you have written. That's it. That is good presentation. It doesn't mean that this is the way it has been presented in IC study material. So actually, I have to do, because of this thought process. You're unnecessarily wasting your time. You have to practice lots of times, and you're not enjoying the subject. So that becomes a big headache for you, and you start frustrating yourself. Got it? Next. Okay, that leave it aside. Now come to this part. This also I've seen. Now in new syllabus, this is the biggest headache. Every problematic question, even in problematic chapters like transfer pricing also, you'll be having theoretical answer. Half the question will be theoretical answer. Now what these guys do as usual, they try to see this sentence by sentence and then try to exactly reproduce it, wasting time. When you try to reproduce it as it is, you will waste time. You have to read it many a times. You have to revise it many a times. Don't do that. Now the trick is very simple. What you do is that try to get the essence of the solution. Essence. Keep that essence here and try to present it on your own. As you can see here, what I've done, this is the second part of the solution. I've calculated numbers on my own. So I've calculated numbers over here. I've shown what's the answer is. And even this sentence I've written myself. I've made it very simple in fact. So I just took the essence, because obviously your answer has to tally with the key. Otherwise we don't get marks in the exam, especially when you're writing CA exams. But it is not like sentence by sentence it has to tally. Nobody can do that. We are not Supermans. So the essence has to tally, the essence of the answer. That's what I've done. So suddenly it makes your job very easier. Now this is the area where you waste your time. Take it very seriously, what I'm telling you. Okay, now this is done. Moving on to next. Okay, now look at this. This one problem. This is not there in your ICA material, but I have given this problem in my material only to make people understand the concept of transfer pricing. Now, if you see, the transfer pricing concept is very simple. See, basically, just imagine that there are two students in a class. Okay, I don't think I've got space here. Anyway, yeah. Let's say there are two students. Okay, let's say this is a girl. Now, this guy has bought a silk chocolate for, say, for example, 150 rupees. You got it? Now, between these two, transaction needs to happen, correct? How will the transaction happen? The first thing is, when this guy tries to sell this particular silk chocolate, he will say that, obviously, will he sell less than 150? No. Because obviously the logic is he has purchased at a price of 150. So he cannot sell, he will not be willing to sell for a price less than 150. Okay, definitely he'll sell the price at greater than 150. So therefore from this I can say minimum selling price or minimum transfer price is nothing but variable cost, or the cost that has been spent by the guy who is trying to sell, which is nothing but supply and division. Now what the receiving division will do, okay, minimum selling price is 150. He will not sell less than 150, right? That doesn't mean that he can sell at any price. Let's say he says that I'll sell it at 300. Will she be buying? Will the receiving division buy? No. Receiving division will say that I have only 200 rupees in my pockets, in my purse. Which means for the transaction to happen, your minimum selling price must be more than the cost that has been spent by the supply and division. At the same time, the maximum TP is nothing but the money that receiving division possesses. The maximum transfer price is nothing but the money that receiving division possesses. So to put it very simple, 150 is less than TP is less than 200 is your answer. So minimum TP is 150, maximum TP is 200. See how simple it is? Same logic applies. Now the moment you see this kind of steps, NMR, what is this NMR? I don't know. Array yaar, NMR is nothing but 200, which I was talking right now in this example. This 200 is nothing but NMR. Net marginal revenue is nothing but the money that receiving division possesses. Are you able to understand? See, it's very simple. But because we don't know English, unfortunately it is not my native language, it's not our native language, so we feel that it's something. NMR is nothing but the money that receiving division possesses. MC is nothing but the 150 rupees, the cost that has been spent by the supplying division. Obviously it will be between them only, na. You need to find out the optimum output level, and this is the cost 11 rupees, and this is the price that, I mean, the money that receiving division possesses 13, so the answer is 11 is less than TP is less than 13. Game over. Very simple. Are you able to understand? So these basic common sense points you should have in your mind. Things will be very simple. So this is the essence of whole transfer pricing chapter. Minimum TP. You should always think from supply division's point of view. Why? Because supply division is the one who has spent the money. So you should think from his point of view. Okay, how much you have spent? This much. Okay, I'll ensure that the TP is more than that. Game over. Because supply division is the one who is spending money. We must ensure that supply division gets more than what he has spent. Done. Universal rule. Now you have to by heart any formula, not necessary. Use your common sense. You know the logic over here. Maximum TP. You should think from receiving agent's point of view. Why? Because he's the one who is trying to buy. You should see whether he has got capability to buy. You cannot keep on fixing TP. If he doesn't have money to buy, he will not buy. Then the transaction will not happen. Got the point? So because purchasing division is the one who is going to buy, and we must ensure that he got sufficient money to buy. Simple. You see, this is a universal rule of this whole chapter called transfer pricing. It's very simple and subtle. The moment we see all this NMR, we just try to buy hard. Okay, maximum TP means NMR. Why maximum TP is NMR? Why do you buy hard? NMR is nothing but the money that he possesses. Common sense use karo. What will be the maximum selling price that I can pay? How much money I've got, that much I'll pay. Beyond that, I cannot pay. That is nothing but NMR. Game over. Got the point. Now, what about this external buying price? Simple logic. Now, I am the receiving division. NMR is nothing but the money that I possess, which is 200, as in the example that I gave you, chocolate example. And this guy was selling at a price of, say, for example, 180. Who? The boy. Silk chocolate. He bought it 150. Now, somebody from outside the class tells this particular girl that we will sell you silk chocolate at 175 itself. This is nothing but external buying price. Even though you have got 200 money, when somebody says that I'll sell you at 175, will you buy at 180 from the class? No. You will say I'll give you 175 only. You will talk to this particular boy in the class saying that outside it is available to me at 175, therefore I'll give you 175. Now the boy cannot argue saying that, Arey yaar, you have 200 in your pockets, now pay me 200. No. 175 I'll pay. If you want, you take. Otherwise, I'll buy it from outside, presuming that the quality is same. So all the other things will come into picture. But the basic concept is very simple. So what will be your maximum TP then? NMR or EBP, whichever is less. So 175 will be maximum TP. Are you able to understand? Now suppose outside somebody says that I will be selling only at 220, the silk chocolate. Then the supply division cannot argue saying that outside it is available at 220. I will sell you only if you pay me 210. Then receiving division can't pay. Because receiving division will say I got 200 only with me. Even if you want 210, I can't pay first of all. Then the transaction will not happen. Therefore, NMR or EBP, whichever is less. That's the concept is. So it's purely based on common sense. Nothing tricky over here. Okay, I may be a bit fast because the intention is to only tell you what you guys are missing. Okay, I hope I gave you enough idea of what you are missing and how to tackle transfer pricing so that to gain expertise on the subject of this particular chapter as well as to score exemption. Right, guys? So that's it from my side. This is how you have to prepare for transfer pricing to get exemption in SCMPE. Got it, guys? So if you really like this session, thank you so much. And if you're suppose watching it in pen drive, it's fine, guys. Just message me. I'll be very happy. And if you're watching in YouTube, definitely hit that like button and give me a comment, guys. Your comment is food for me and happiness for me, right? Thank you so much. This PK sir signing off. Jai Hind.